Hi, and thank you very much for joining this session. My name is Harpak. I'm Head of Product Security in the Mercedes-Benz R&D Hub in Tel Aviv. I'm very excited to be speaking here at Black Hat, and I hope that we'll be able to meet each other next time in a more normal or new normal format, face-to-face. In the next 40 minutes, I'm going to present, together with my partners from 360, more information on the security research done from Mercedes-Benz that we presented together with RSA earlier this year. But before we dive into the technical details of the research, I want to talk about something big happening in the world today. And as the cliche goes, I'm not talking about COVID-19. I'm talking about the transformation going in the automotive industry. I'm sure most of you are aware of this transformation. You probably even feel it in your day-to-day. We in the industry like to look at this transformation by following 4 major trends. First, the connected car. Cars becoming more and more connected to the internet, connected to other infrastructure, seamless and intuitive mobility, enabling features ranging from entertainment into more unique and special, even safety features. Second trend we follow are the autonomous cars. I'm not going to talk about it too much today. We all know, we talk about it, we hear about it, we read about it in the news daily. I won't share more insights here, but we all know that this is a major trend going through the industry. Third, shared mobility, services around cars, shared mobility allowing new usage models and services, new digital services for us, car drivers, car customers. Last but not least, electric mobility. Locally free emission, very exciting trend, and again, a shift for the entire industry. But we're a cybersecurity conference, so I will focus today on the connected cars. And I'll focus on securing a connected cars. Securing a connected car is a challenge. A car is a system of systems. It has a lot of complexity in it, and securing it is exciting. But when you think about it, securing a connected car is not enough, because we think of how to secure each car and how to defend the entire fleet. And in order to illustrate the challenge here, I like to think of a patch of road, a patch of highway. Imagine a highway in rush hour. So just imagine, how many cars do you see in this patch of highway during rush hour? How many types of cars? How many different model years? Some of you probably know, each car can have between 70 to 150 electronic control units, ECUs. Those are little computers with a microcontroller or microprocessors, running code, connecting to the network. They have interfaces, and they could have vulnerabilities. So if you multiply the amount of cars that you imagined by the amount of ECUs, electronic control units, you can get, in a single patch of highway, to thousands, tens of thousands, maybe even millions of cars. Think about it around the world. This is one of the largest IoT networks around the world, connected cars. Now, I always say, I have 3 little kids and I have a dog back home. This is a very interesting daily challenge, but professionally, defending a fleet is one of the biggest challenges I've seen. And we are tackling this challenge. In order to do that, we have an approach. We like to call it fleet SecOps, fleet security operations, defending the fleet of cars on the road. How would you do fleet SecOps? How would you do fleet security operations? Pretty much like you would do for standard enterprise network, standard IoT devices, all of the other systems that we need to defend. First, you assess where you stand. You try to identify all of your vulnerabilities. You try to know what are the threats, what are the risks. Maybe you have a red team in place, maybe you have a threat intelligence team in place, building the threat landscape for you, so you know where you stand, you can assess. Second, you have the technologies, the processes, the people in place to detect any attack. So for example, you use the head unit, the little computer that you use to maybe hear music, navigation, maybe control the air conditioning, and this little computer in the car is suddenly sending a braking signal, then something is probably wrong. But take it to the higher level, take it to the fleet level. Look at all the anonymous data you get from a fleet and try to see, does my fleet today behave the same as it did in the same geography yesterday? If there's something different, potentially you have detected an attack. And then comes the third stage, the ability to respond. People, processes, again technologies, in place to respond to any potential attack. So you can investigate, so you can do any changes, fixing any vulnerabilities that are needed, so you can do the forensics to understand the scope of any potential attack. And then, after you have the lessons learned, the fourth stage, last but really not least, because it's all part of a round circle that is happening all the time, you need to further protect your fleet. It can be the cars that we are developing today, and it can be the cars that are already in the road. So in essence, between any event and event, you have better security for the entire fleet. If you want to learn more about fleet SecOps, then you can look at the presentation we gave at RSA earlier this year, where we talked about the key principles and how we tackle the key challenges in fleet SecOps. But since this is Black Hat, I want to leave some time to the partners at 360 to detail more about the great research they've done and how it helped us improve the security of our fleet. So thank you very much. I invite to the virtual stage the partners from 360, and I'll come back to the virtual stage afterwards to talk a little bit about what we did once those findings were responsibly disclosed. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Jiahao. Today I'm glad to speak at Black Hat. It's a dream come true for me. Thanks Black Hat Real World, thanks for Schedule team's hard work, and Minrui will start this talk. Please enjoy.
Schedule team is a security research team established in 2014. We focus on connected car and industry security. In China, we have about 75% market share on cybersecurity of connected car. Notable research, about 6 years ago, we do the first cybersecurity case on Tesla and BYD connectivity functionality. Then we do the research on Tesla's autopilot system. About 3 years ago, we developed the CAN evaluation platform called CANPIC. And in 2019, we developed an in-vehicle active defense system for the CAN bars. The last one is we have done the Mercedes-Benz cases from the hardware to control. This is the timeline of our research on Mercedes-Benz. About 2 years ago, we started research on Mercedes-Benz. Then we spent about 1 year to find the vulnerabilities to achieve car control. Then we report the findings to the Daimler. Then they fixed the vulnerability very quickly, and we decided to publish our research today. This is the result of our research. The impact of our research. Our vulnerability can impact our Mercedes-Benz connected car in China in over 2 million. And we can get access to invoke remote servers to control the car, like control the doors, light, windows, engine, and we can do these things without physical access. This is the agenda of our talk. First of all, we will talk about how to build Testbench. Then we focus on HERMES. The last thing is the way to car control. This is the most important you care. Then we will give the summary from the schedule, and Guy will introduce the incident response in their presentation and their summary about our research. Okay, let's talk about build Testbench. In our research, we have two very important components. The first one is HERMES, as known as TCU, Telematics Control Unit. The second one is head unit, as known as Vehicle Infotainment System. HERMES is TCU, Telematics Control Unit. This device provides communication functionality for the vehicle. This device draws too much attention from security research, since it helps users to remote monitor and control the car. We found several versions of the HERMES from the market. This HERMES has little differences between each other on hardware design. Head head unit is a computer that provides infotainment functionalities. This device is also called in-vehicle infotainment system. It provides Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and USB servers. User can interact with it to control the car and get more information about the car. We tell them the head unit, and we learned that this head unit is much more complicated with the same device in other cars. Whenever in hardware and software, we will talk more detail later. The first step for us is to build a testbench. It helps us easier to do the research on the table. We draw this image. You can see the left image according to the architecture of Mercedes-Benz connected car. It helps us to make head unit and HERMES works. When we built Testbench, we encountered an anti-safe warning. Anti-safe of Mercedes-Benz was designed for NTG 2.5 since 1990. The anti-safe has caused much inconvenience to our research since it wastes our so much time. Up to now, we met 3 types of anti-safe. The first one is warning you to restart head unit. The other 2 are stricter, because you must ask your dealer or contact Mercedes Service Center to deactivate this anti-safe. With the help of dealer, we solve this problem temporarily, but it is easy to trigger such level anti-safe during your research. When we encounter this problem, we must spend much time and money to ask dealer's help. It is too efficient. For more convenience, we back up the SD card data to restore the head unit whenever we want. Then we use the cameras tool to find out the anti-safe trigger message. We made the middle tool, which have 2-way CAN transceiver. It can divide the ECU network into 2 parts. Therefore, we can filter or modify the message on canvas. We have analyzed the message on CAN HMI and CAN A. In this process, we found that once the IC or the control panel disconnected, the head unit will restart quickly. If we send an abnormal CAN message to the head unit, for instance, we change the VIN and it will trigger high-level anti-safe. This time we have only one way to do, which is restore the head unit. We found out different heartbeat message for this 2-way CAN bus for regular. Moreover, we found out same ID to prevent high-level anti-safe. Finally, we built the Testbench successfully. Before we talk about the vulnerability, we should analyze the attack vectors first. The head unit is the first device we researched. The version is NTG 5.5. It uses Windows CE Automotive 7 operating system, and it spent us so much time to analyze it because we must figure out how it boots and how it loads the kernel. The file system and the kernel are together. And you can see there are so many files we decrypted and extracted in this picture. But it doesn't mean that we clear this game. It's just the beginning. It's very hard for us to do reverse engineering on these files, which have many structure and objects for inter-process communication. We can't guess what they are. The most difficult is how to dynamic debug them. We never studied Windows CE and we have no knowledge about it. Moreover, it's too old and discarded by Apple. The SOC of the head unit is Renaissance, our car H2 solution. We don't have our car H2 debug environment because we didn't buy it. You know, this is called our car H2 DVK. Even if we got a DVK, we have no user manual. And the Windows CE Automotive 7 is not an open source project. We have no idea about that. We got a fully born black and installed Windows CE 7. And then we tried to run this Kubo fails for a long time, but it has too much issues, so we gave up the research on NTG 5.5. The next attack vector is OBD2. I mean, car hacking research kills OBD because it usually doesn't have a protection. The OBD interface connects to the HERMES and the EIS. The HERMES is the telecommunication control unit, where the EIS means electronic ignition system. Also, the EIS is the gateway in the vehicle. The OBD attacking its physical access it is limited, and the severity is low for new Mercedes-Benz car because we can't affect the power or human safety functionality, such as airbag and the display from OBD2 interface. And you may ask, why don't you pair a new key from OBD2 with X entry? I told you we can't do that without FPS for data because we don't have any authorized account from the Daimler. The last attack vector in the Testbench is HERMES. The HERMES contains a 4G module that connects to the car with the internet. HERMES is designed by Harpak that uses embedded links. It is easier than Windows CE. Head unit access the internet through the HERMES. The HERMES communicates with the head unit, has many methods such as Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, USB, the protocol called WCC, which is Daimler's own protocol. The traditional attack vector is useless for HERMES, but we've still found some useful attack vector in hardware aspect. Okay, let's talk about HERMES. HERMES plays a very important role in communicating with the internet. This is the critical content in our talk. In the beginning, when we got HERMES, we have no idea about this because this device is much more secure than other devices we have seen. HERMES has multiple versions, iterating from 3G to 4G. The older mode used the Qualcomm Celery module. The new one is Silicon Celery module. For the PCB design aspect, the USB interface was removed from the old one. They intend vias with solder mask in the PCB, which made it more challenging to build the test bench. In the latest HERMES 2, it doesn't have a new feature. Only the GPS module and antenna has been optimized. For older modes, such as A-class, E-class, GLE class, the HERMES connects to the head unit via USB. And for the old high-end mode, HERMES connects to the head unit via Bluetooth. For the new models, HERMES version is 1.5 and 2.1, which connects to the head unit with double LAN. They use the WCC protocol. Then Jiahao will take over here, talk more about the detail.
To find the debug ports at the PCB, we should prepare a 4G module, pin assignment, and find the appropriate pin according to the PCB wiring. Finally, you can connect these ports with your tools. There is a hard way to find the 4G module pinout. Use the BGA workstation, hit from the button at 400 Celsius for 1 minute, and you can remote up quickly. Then you can use the flashlight and multimeters to find out the wiring. It's common that an IoT device uses UART debug port. Of course, we found the UART debug port at HERMES. We found some API names and user names for the network initialization log. Also, we found the backend URLs for these logs. At the USB port, we found it supported command. We open more debug ports with the set mode command. At the 4G module DBK, you can open a DB service with set mode. However, for HERMES, we didn't open the DB service in this way. We find more in the device list after sending set mode command. We can send more edit command to the application interface. There's another way to obtain an application configuration. That is, change the USB mode and send this command to fetch PDB context configuration. The API name is there. For example, use the AT upgrade to flash the system. You should repackage an available firmware and bypass the signature check. Furthermore, you must keep the watchdog asleep. Otherwise, when you upgrade the 4G module, the MCU resets the power and you will get a break. By the way, we got many breaks. Well, we don't have a JTAG debug tool for the MCU, but we found JTAG debug interface at the 4G module. It enters the breakpoint successfully. We can read or write the bootloader because it was loaded in memory. As well as you can modify the memory, you can dump out the firmware, but we don't have the NAND driver. It's a little bit hard to read the NAND flash from the JTAG because you have to reverse engineer the kernel and find out the register for the NAND controller. On the other side, the breakpoints are unstable. Even if you enter the breakpoint, the watchdog restarts your 4G module. To prevent it from restarting, you should connect the MCU with your device and feed the watchdog while HERMES is running. This way is too troublesome. So we have to find another way to get the firmware. Let's see the storage memory. Open the shell of cellular module. You can find an MSCP chip, which is composed of a NAND flash and a DDR. Whether it is the old or the new 4G module, they both use the same memory size flash. The difference is just the packaging. We use the BGA workstation to hit the tear down. The left is the old NAND flash and the right is the new NAND flash. For the BGA 137 NAND flash, we don't have a appropriate socket, so we have to wire up into the TSOP48 PCB adapter. Actually, we just need to wire up 16 magnet wires, which includes 6 control pins and 8 data I/O pins. The rest pins are the VCC and the GND. This is not hard, but with your time and your eyes, of course, we fed up enough with wiring up magnet wires. So we made some PCB adapters and sockets. And it can wire out all the 48 pins because we wanted to support 8-bit and 16-bit NAND flash by just changing the sockets only, so that we can reuse the sockets. But for smaller size NAND flash, we just wear out the required pins because the distance of the tin box is so small that the PCB factory doesn't support the width as we found out. The next is to dump data from the NAND flash program. Each page has a 2048 bytes data zone and 64 bytes spare area. We can use the correct parameters to read out data from the chip according to the user manual. The spare area is called OB area. At first, we created the NAND flash manual, and we found some about the spare area. The official suggests that the last 64 bytes of each page. But we found that the last 64 bytes have some system data. It doesn't match the user manual because the spare area mapping depends on the NAND controller in the 4G module rather than the NAND flash chip. Comparing the NAND dump between the Qualcomm and the hard silicon, you can find the mapping of the spare areas are not the same. There are 2 ways to find the mappings of the spare area. One is to check the source code. Although the NAND flash controller has the spare area mapping and ECC, the Qualcomm NAND controller driver is open source. We can find details at the code comments. Also, the automotive NAND flash is a single level cell. the Qualcomm divides the page by 512 bytes as a subpage. Each subpage has one spare area, but not all the non-spare area mappings are open to the public. For the unknown mapping, you can pick out 2 pages with the spare area. Then compare them, you can find something special at the same offset as a page, such as the FF or the random bytes. This belongs to the spare area, which includes the bedrock flag and the ECC data. The next is to make a tool to remove the spare area. There are 3 different types of spare area mappings, including bootloaders, systems, and modems, but we care system partitions only. In general, the spare area doesn't include data about the host system. However, there's not. Qualcomm system partition uses YAFFS, which is a file system for an embedded device. The YAFFS needs to use 16 bytes in the spare area. After removing the spare area, the firmware is still a single binary file. There's no tool support to extract data from it, so we need to find a partition table from the 4G module to separate each partition. For the Qualcomm 4G module, you can find partition tables by searching these magics. The start of 8 bytes is the primary magic and the sub-magic. Another way is to search for MIBRV strings, and you must find it because it's the partition name of the table. We wrote a Python script to parse the partition table and extract files from it. We found that the bootloader is an Android image format. It uses multi-level bootloaders such as APP SBL, SBL1, SBL2. Obviously, the 4G module has a secure boot. You can find a system which for upgrading is redundant. The HiSilicon 4G module boot process is similar to Qualcomm. The bootloader in our HiSilicon development kit always prints the partition table when it boots. The partition table is the same as the HERMES. Another way is to check the open source code of HiSilicon. In the NAND dump, you can find a string called ptablehead. If you Google it, you will find the bootloader source code. We can find the partition table and extract partitions according to the source code. Finally, we pass the partition table of HiSilicon. The name is Balloon V7R2 to Telematics. It's the same as the 4G router, which uses the Balloon V7R2. You can find something interesting at the 4PDA forum. What's more, the file system is YAFFS2. The YAFFS is designed for the NAND flash. To keep the flash works longer, the YAFFS uses the wear leveling so that block is non-sequential. The block mappings are in the spare area. We wrote a tool to operate the YAFFS standalone partition according to the Linux YAFFS driver. We got all the system files and we found a lot of OEM maps. So the next step is to analyze these applications. During our reverse engineering works, we found that some of the references are missing or wrong, and some executable files can't run in the emulator. That makes me confused. After comparing the firmware dumps from the same NAND flash, we found a bit flipping problem. After troubleshooting, the bit flipping is a phenomenon. Therefore, the NAND controller needs ECC. The older Qualcomm NAND flash has a bit flipping errors, but at the NAND flash of HERMES 1.5, it's perfect. To fix the bit flipping errors, we have 2 ways. One is to compare NAND flash dump repeatedly. Replace the change bit with the bit which is most frequent, but that does not really solve the problem. The other one is to check the source code about the ECC, but it just shows the ECC algorithm type. The code implementation and the polynomial is not the same. This is usually not open to the public. The HERMES UART port only prints out log, doesn't have an interactive shell. For dynamic debugging the HERMES app, we need to modify the CMD line to open TD1 shell redirected to the HERMES ports. Or we can disable the firewall and open ADB service, but we can't write the change to NAND flash directly. Because NAND controller has hardware ECC while the NAND program doesn't. So we have to generate correct ECC, merge it into the OB area, then write it to the NAND flash. We got an ECC algorithm and generated the correct ECC that is the same as the dumped from the NAND. We contact the data area, ECC area, reverse area, and bad block flag to get on each page. Because the secure boot only checks the boot procedure, we can change the system files freely, then flash the new raw data to NAND flash. The last job is NAND reballing. This optics BGA workstation can help you align the balls. We can modify the system to build a HERMES DVK. After we got the root shell, we found an application called Engineer Mode, which can manage the HERMES services. It can send CAN signal, but it's not a real CAN signal. It just constructs PDU and sends it to the SH2A MCU. Then the MCU decides whether to transmit it to CAN bus. If you need to get full access to CAN bus, you need to modify the SH2A firmware. But I think it's a nightmare that works for me, because if you do it, you need to learn the SH2A instruction, then got the SH2A ID and debugging tool, and spend a lot of time to reverse and patch it. So we give up the SH2A reverse engineering. That's the research work for the HERMES. And we also found vulnerabilities in the TSP through HERMES. Now Minrui will show the research about the backend.
Okay, thank you, Jiahao. I will take over from here to talk more about car control. We got an interactive shell in HERMES. However, we have no way to attack HERMES directly. Now turn around and think that if we could control the backend, can we control the HERMES? Then can we eventually control the car? At the very beginning, we got a 4G router. Then we wired up the eSIM to a SIM card adapter, configured the API information we found earlier. But it doesn't work, because the 4G router showed no servers. After troubleshooting, we found out that M2M backend could detect the IMEI, and if the IMEI changed, the account could be frozen immediately. So before using eSIM, we have to write the original device IMEI in our 4G device. So we must find a 4G device that we can change IMEI, such as an unlocked 4G module development board, a modified 4G router, or an MTK platform phone. We got another available eSIM, which I took it off the board, because if we connect it with jump wires, which broke easily. Finally, managed to connect to the 4G carrier network. On the root system, you can see that it got an IPv4 address. It belongs to the carrier's intranet. However, the carrier intranet has a security policy. Devices are isolated from each other. Therefore, we are not going to scan for intranet IP address, because that is almost no help for us to discover backend server, and it will lead the server to alarm. We can't use this eSIM to access the intranet. And as soon as we send an HTTP request, the browser returns a page from the China Unicom's shop. But it doesn't matter. It just means the account is out of credit. But we can still request backend service in this situation. There are so many files we got from the system. It is too heavy for us to do reverse engineering one by one. Therefore, we use a firmware tool. It called yet another firmware analysis framework, which can help us analyze all the files relationships in the firmware. First, we use the domain of the leaked URL that we found from the UART log before to find files related to the domain. In the left picture, we can find some configuration files with this domain. In the right image, we can get more URL information that is helpful for further penetration testing. For the related ELF file, we can do reverse engineering on authentication process and the head unit pairing process to find the potential vulnerabilities. We can't request these URLs we found before, since the TSP using mutual HTTPS, so we need a client certificate. The certificate management library loads the certificates. The infrastructure process application will request the backend. We found some key pairs and root certificates, and we found some PFX file, which is encrypted. We need password for the PFX files to get client certificates. We analyzed this library and we found the HERMES will load the PFX and the password file during system booting. The application loads the certificate according to the market area. We found 3 types of certificates. This library can decrypt the password file. It's using the AES-256 CBC algorithm. The AES-IV and the key are hard-coded in the ELF file. So we decrypted it with OpenSSL and got a PFX password. Finally, we load it to the browser. You can see that they are available. The certificate 006-0001 is for China market. And we found a social media plugin from the head unit. When you open it first time, it shows a QR code and pull back and repeatedly. Then you can use your application to scan this QR code, and the head unit will receive a token. Then it will request the social media application to get user data. Then send this user avatar URL to the backend, because the backend doesn't know whether the avatar URL is credible. So we can use this vulnerability to read servers' local files or request the intranet servers. The TSP communicates with HERMES by using the Daimler's their own protocol. It supports the TCP channel. Also, it supports the SMS channel where the network is terrible. When the car starts, the HERMES wakes up and it sends a request to the backend in an encrypted channel with local shared key. The shared key are different amount of vehicle. The shared key are dynamic and changed in time. The HERMES exchange and send a new key to the TSP in a security channel, where a car owner sends an unlock command from the Mercedes-Benz application. It requests the backend car control API. If the HERMES is in sleep state, the backend sends the SMS for waking up. Then the backend establishes communication with HERMES. When HERMES receives a car control command, it checks the car state and decides whether to execute. Then it sends the result to backend. That is the full process of the car control data stream. For authentication and communication, attacking 4G is not a good idea. So we try to research the SMS channel. We disable the HERMES cellular network, then change the platform number to our own phone number. We can communicate with HERMES with our own phone. There are basic 64 encoded ATP data. The strategy is followed. It is secure due to the SHA-256, HMAC, and AES-256 encrypted. Every message uses a count. Even if it doesn't use the encrypted data, we are not able to tamper the data or replay it to HERMES. It seems that the mechanism is perfect, but we still find a point that we can exploit. The backend internal servers has no authentication mechanism. They are fully trusting the servers in the internet. If we can get access to the internet behind the backend, we can invoke almost all the servers in the backend. After a long-term analysis, we discovered some vulnerabilities in the backend, and we found the most important service, remote service. It can open the door, start engine, open the roof, close the roof. But the engine service is limited because it is a value-added server that you need to pay about $450 every year. Besides, it has set electric fence. This service is based on FBS4. When you want to start engine, the backend sends the request to ask HERMES for challenge code, and then the backend asks internal service to calculate FBS token. The algorithm is installed behind the backend. We don't know the detail about the algorithm. By the way, not all the cars support this server, and it depends on whether the Daimler database stores the FBS4 data of your car. Currently, we can only start engine successfully in Class A and Class E. Okay, let's summarize our research. We follow the responsible disclosure policy, and when we find those vulnerabilities and we can achieve our control target, we report our finding to the Mercedes-Benz security team first time. In our research, we found about 19 vulnerabilities in Mercedes-Benz car and compared them to a attack chain to remotely control the car. The key impact is that we can send the remote service command to the car, but we didn't go too far, even we get more access to more important servers. And yes, we did see many security considerations in the architecture of the vehicle. We spent so much time to bypass this security mechanism. Regarding to the vulnerabilities, all access vulnerabilities were fixed together. The rest of the vulnerabilities are being fixed by Mercedes-Benz security team and their vendors. Okay, the guy will take over from here to introduce their incident response. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank Minrui and all of the amazing team at 360 for providing us more details. Now we were able to see FleetSecOps in action. And why do I say it's FleetSecOps in action? Because once we got from 360 Group the responsible disclosure through our website, through our email box, then we were able to kick in all of the incident response procedure to treat this as an actual incident. Following standard steps. First, we initiate the incident response teams. So this is mobilizing teams, professionals and operationals in order to do the investigation, understand where we stand, engage in direct communication with the researchers from 360, analyze and prioritize what are our steps, with the goal that within 48 hours we are able to fix all of the immediate vulnerabilities, just making sure that there can't be a potential customer impact with these vulnerabilities. After performing the investigation, we start working on selective blocking of servers, ports, maybe even services that will, on one hand, make sure that no hole remains open that can be exploited, and on the second hand, we have minimal to no customer impact. So we're able, within 48 hours, to contain and make sure that those vulnerabilities can be exploited, and start working on immediate fixes so we can bring the services back online. Then we have in parallel the forensic teams. Forensics teams looking at all the data, of the recorded data, just to find that there's no evidence of other attackers, not beyond the partners from 360, that were able to use and exploit the same vulnerabilities in the past. So to make sure that we find no evidence of a potential real-life breach, and develop the long-term fixes. long-term fixes that can be fixed to the car. So within a few days, we were able to bring all of the services back online, while we remain completely confident that the same vulnerabilities can be fixed. And thanks to the partners of 360, we were able to do that with direct communication with the researchers. Then we have, like any operational activity, the lessons learned phase. What's interesting here is that we're not only talking about technical lessons learned of the vulnerabilities themselves. We look at all of the phases that allow the researchers to reach their goal, to make sure that we put hardening measures in place so it will be even harder for a researcher or an attacker in the future to try and walk similar path, even if not the same one. Of course, the vulnerabilities themselves can't be fixed. And like every operational activity, we look at how we behaved. We look at how we responded so we can provide better security next time something happens. And we are proud to say that we managed to work with our KPIs. I have two messages, key messages, with giving this presentation here to this great community of Black Hat. First message is, of course, security operations, or fleet security operations. Not only securing a car, but securing the fleet. I guess it will be true for any IoT system. It's more true for cars. Second is the work with the community. We have here an example how a strong research community working with a strong industry can bring better security. And this is a concrete example of our strong security research group working with a car company capable of responding and engaging in communication is providing better security for the customers. Thank you for coming to this session. I hope you enjoyed it. As I said in the beginning, I hope that we'll be able to meet face-to-face in a more normal kind of Black Hat, maybe next year. And please enjoy the rest of your sessions and keep healthy. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join this session. We were very keen on sharing as much information as possible beyond what was shared on our say. And I want to thank the partners from 360 for joining this. We don't have much time for this live session, so I will move the stage to Minrui to say thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for listening our talk. And my team is doing the research on connected car server, yes, and Mercedes-Benz is a very good company, and they are very care about car security, and they are very friendly to the security community. Thank you, everyone.